Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's back? So today we're going to be speaking about Kanye West. Going to delve in a little bit to his character, his personality, and then obviously we're discussing some of the recent comments and things that he's said, which has landed him in a little bit of hot water. Is it warranted, all of the backlash that he's getting from various different people? Is it unfair? Does he have a point? Is he just crazy in everything he says? There's a lot of things to discuss. I'm going to try and just discuss a few things as quick as possible. I'm not going to make the video too long. But I just thought that it would be interesting to talk about Kanye West, especially where you've got, a large proportion of the media kind of condemning everything that he's saying and that he's totally crazy. And this could be true. This could be true, but also, it could be not true. So that's the kind of thing. I just want to have a little look at, why he's saying certain things. He seems to have taken on this idea that he's being attacked for saying his truth, saying what is true, and kind of a little bit of a victim thing there. And I want to kind of discuss that a little bit. So let's just really get into it. So the recent comments that he's made, they've been taken as being anti-Semitic. Now, he said in an interview, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have all the details, and I'm not really like a huge fan where I know everything about him or anything. It's just recent things that I've seen in little interviews. So, please correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong about everything I'm saying quite easily. But from what I've seen, he made some comments about Jewish people, where he said that they own almost everything in the media. They control everything. And he seemed to be suggesting that they're so powerful that what they tend to do is they tend to own things and try to own people. So people like Kanye West, who is a very kind of like a creative person, he wants ownership of himself, and a lot of these artists feel like they're being controlled by these superpowers, and that all these Jewish people that own a large amount of Hollywood and the music industry and all different industries, they're all in collusion together, in a way that, like, maybe not physically like they all know each other, but more that their culture basically suppresses everyone else. He feels like he's being suppressed because they're so powerful that if you say anything against the powers that be, this is the Jewish powerful media, this is a construct, an idea that he's constructing. We're going to get into if this is true or if there's any truth in it, but he's constructing this narrative that there is a conglomerate of Jewish power in the media, which cannot be, you can't say anything against them. Otherwise, they blacklist you and they have the power to basically ruin your life. And he basically says that they can do this quite easily because of the power that they have and the influence that they have in the world and in the media today. He's saying that this is totally unfair, and he's calling upon people to push back against this kind of Jewish takeover, for want of a better word. Better phrase, I should say. So is this true? Is there any truth in this, what he's saying? Does it even make sense? So let's look at, does it make sense, first of all, before we even try to validate if it's true or not? So the first thing I'd like to point out is that I'm not in Kanye West's shoes. I'm not a multi-billionaire. I suspect the majority of people who are going to be assessing what he's saying and who are complaining about what he says or who are supporters of what he says are not in his shoes either. Most people are not multi-billionaires, and they're not, music moguls or anything like that. So we have to kind of realize that he sees things that us, normal, ordinary people may not see things in that way. Yeah, he may see the injustices that happen to him and people that he knows in the music industry, in the fashion industry. He is involved in all of these major industries, so he's obviously going to be privy to certain things, and he's going to feel certain things, and he's going to see certain injustices that us, the normal people, will never see. Yeah, so that's a good thing to keep in mind, because I think a lot of people, when they see certain things happen, they start kind of coming up with their own opinions, even though that's what I'm doing. But they can sometimes be quite biased and not realize they're being biased because they're actually seeing things through a different lens. And I'm gonna try and not do this. Yeah, probably gonna be completely unsuccessful because we are all biased because we can only see things through our own lens in the end. But I'm gonna still try and be unbiased in some ways. So obviously, he's in a position that I'm not in. You know, he has been making music for a number of years, very successful artist. He's very creative. Even from the first kind of album, he spoke about a lot of creative things, a lot of controversial things. He's been very controversial in interviews. He's been very controversial with fashion type of clothes that he's worn, and then obviously in recent years with his statements, with his affiliation with Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And then he's been kind of like, there's been a number of fractions of people that have been against him for what he's said. He's had a large amount of the black community against him when he kind of took on this idea that Black Lives Matter should appeal to everybody and we shouldn't single out just the lives of black people. And then he wore shirts saying White Lives Matter, and that was taken as a disrespect towards the Black Lives Matter movement. I suppose this was kind of the main reason why he eventually lost the support of the Black Lives Matter, you know, of the support of the black community and people who support Black Lives Matter. They basically went against him. And then, inevitably, you have another group of people who thought that what he was saying was true, was very refreshing. All lives should matter. It shouldn't just be one lives matter, one group of people's lives matter. And then there was that whole movement where people said that he was speaking the truth, and you know, that's where this whole kind of controversy came from. That was the first thing. That's the first major controversial thing that I heard that he was involved in. So you've got that situation now, and then he also said a controversial thing about slavery. So he said 400 years of slavery. That doesn't sound like slavery. That sounds like that was a choice. And then again, he upset the black community with that. If they weren't upset already, they were even more against him now when he said that, because obviously it sounded as if he was dismissing the atrocities of slavery, and so that's undoubtedly going to make a whole group of people very upset about that. That was that major controversial thing that he went through, that he said as well. And now the recent thing is he's now laying a lot of blame at the Jewish media that he calls. This is his term, the Jewish media. Yeah. So what does it all mean? So the reason why I'm starting from some of his other controversial things, I'm trying to show a kind of a pattern, like an overall picture that he is quite a controversial figure in general. And that's a very important thing to notice. It's not as if he's someone who never says anything controversial ever and then suddenly came out with something. He is a controversial figure in general. He says the things that he thinks. He tends to speak with his feelings and his emotions. He seems to be quite an emotional person who has very polarizing views. This is kind of the overall character of the man in general. You know, so that's not something unlikely. It wasn't unlikely that he would come out with something like this. That's what I'm trying to say. Then, obviously, he continued to make that infamous comment about the 400 years of slavery being a choice. He said, to be slaves for 400 years sounds like a choice to me, yeah? So, he's wrong. Slavery was not a choice. Most definitely not a choice. But I think what he's trying to get at, the point that he's trying to get at is he's against this victim mindset. He doesn't like victim mindset. It's the same reason why he was speaking about how we should empower ourselves and we shouldn't say Black Lives Matter because that puts us like a victim. You know, it's this type of idea. This is why he likes Trump. Trump is trying to empower the people, and he doesn't like the Democrats. The Democrats are trying to actually lowering standards, and they're kind of like pulling the wool over our eyes and stuff. So he's basically saying we need to stand up for ourselves. We need to make more of ourselves. We need to take accountability and be responsible for our choices and the things that are going wrong in our own communities. And we need to stop blaming other people and other establishments um, for having influence over us or having power over us, blaming everyone else, the police force, and all different fractions of the society for issues that are, or even systemic issues that are in the black community. Um, and he's saying that it should be dealt with by the black community and nobody else is responsible. And he's kind of referring, so this kind of ideology that he has, he's applying this to the idea of this 400 years of slavery thing. He's saying 400 years is too long to be a victim. He's saying, it's too long to be a victim. Within that time, there must have been opportunities to change this narrative, to fight back against the regime, to even die for the cause, to do something to change this situation. You can't then say, oh, we were slaves for 400 years, there's nothing we can do. So he's kind of insinuating that at first it was physical slavery, we couldn't do nothing about it, but then there became a point where it became mental slavery. Yeah, we weren't physically unable to get out of it. It was more that we were comfortable. We were comfortable being controlled, rather than opposing this control and being uncomfortable in a situation where we're actually not allowing the slavery and fighting back. And that's kind of what he's saying. And that goes together with what he's saying about the victim thing. He doesn't agree with this Black Lives Matter victim stuff. He's trying to say that we're all on the same level. We're all people, and we all have the ability to change lives and to be responsible for our own lives, and we do not have to blame anybody else. And it's the same for slavery. So saying that we were slaves for 400 years and it still affects us now, and white people should pay for this in some way, is wrong. This is what he was basically getting at. Now, the black community did not like this. Obviously, they were triggered emotionally because they felt like he was belittling the idea of slavery. And more importantly, he was belittling the impact of slavery, I should say, on modern day life, and how the mindset of the black community now. And so he's basically, this is kind of the point he was making. Now, people kind of took this out of context, because if you're triggered by it, you're going to take, so the black community mostly was triggered by it, and they didn't really take on board that he was pointing out the fact that we shouldn't concentrate on being victims. Now, the thing that's quite interesting about what he's saying now about the Jews is kind of similar to what he said about the black society, black community. It's kind of similar. He's saying about the Jews that anytime you push back against the Jewish people, he's kind of insinuating that they hide behind the atrocities of Nazi Germany. And so because they can hide behind what happened to them, their community in Nazi Germany, they suppress what other people's views. So as soon as you say something which goes against the narrative of the Jewish media, which is how he puts it, yeah, they can suppress you and call you anti-Semitic straight away. And that's also wrong, because he's trying to say this is the same kind of victim mindset, that they can say, oh, shut this guy up, it's anti-Semitic, and you can just be shut down. And he thought that's unfair as well. So it's kind of a similar thing that what he was saying against, black people always harping on about the impact of slavery. He's saying that the Jewish people are also doing this, even though they have lots of power, they're using this to shut people up and call them anti-Semitic. And so obviously he's basically saying that his freedom of speech is being controlled. He cannot express any views that go against this power, the Jewish media, right? This Jewish media, he's saying, controls the narrative in the whole world. They control all of the media. They have a lot of influence over the way people think and what is expressed. And obviously, being a creator and someone who has influence over fashion and music, and this is also having influence over the way people express themselves and the way people think, he's obviously in a position to see this influence, that they're in a powerful position, a more powerful position than most people, in controlling the narrative, and that's what he doesn't like. Basically, that's what it comes down to. Is it a fair comment? Well, if we just look at the facts, if you look at all the major executives, and in the media, the news outlets, fashion, and all sorts of things, music, there's a large percentage of these people are Jewish. Yeah, large percentage of them are Jewish. But does that mean that, are they all individuals acting as just individuals, or can you actually say that they're all kind of connected in some way to kind of control the narrative and to suppress everybody else? Now, I don't think that's a fair statement. I don't think it's a fair statement, really. Another reason why I don't think it's a fair statement is because he's one of the people, the main people, who's against this kind of idea um, of being a victim. Yeah, so he was against being a victim in one situation, but now that he's noticed some pushback against him and against some of the things that he wanted to do, and he feels like he's being suppressed or oppressed, I should say, he's now taking on fully the victim mentality. It's like the very victim mentality that he's so opposed to, he's taking it on board now that it relates to him. That's how I kind of see it. He's had some pushback against some things that he wanted to do, and now he wants everybody else to listen and kind of support him. And this is kind of a theme in his life. I mean, he had this marriage relationship with the Kardashians. I forgot her name. I really don't follow social media that much, but one of the Kardashians anyway. So when that relationship broke down, he wanted the whole world to feel sorry for him and to be behind him, and in support of what he was going through with his ex-wife. Yeah, if this is not victim behavior, I don't know what is. When the black community went against him, saying that he's taking this Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter thing out of context, yeah, he felt like a victim. He wanted, he said that he's been vilified and stuff like that, when really all it was is that the whole movement of the Black Lives Matter started because they wanted to kind of shine the light on police brutality. So what they were saying is black people in general are being killed disproportionately to every other minority, or every other group of people. And so they wanted to make a stand, and that's how Black Lives Matter. It was never like they're saying Black Lives Matter and other lives don't matter. But people came up with this kind of narrative. Even Kanye West in an interview was saying, we shouldn't say other lives matter, all lives matter. But that wasn't actually the point of the Black Lives Matter. It was just to highlight the fact that, almost every single week in America, another black person was shot dead, and there were so many situations where they were unarmed, and a lot of kind of things like that, basically just to create awareness over this situation that was going on for many years, where a lot of black people were being shot and killed by the police, and a lot of cases were not handled well, and people thought that black people were being jailed for disproportionately longer sentences. These kind of injustices, the Black Lives Matter movement was made basically to highlight these things, yeah, which is fair enough, whether you agree or not. It was highlighted for this reason. It wasn't highlighted to kind of degrade the meaningfulness of other people's lives or other groups of people's lives. So it wasn't made to say other lives don't matter. And this is something you see a lot. People who are against the Black Lives Matter movement, they always say, oh, this is racist because other lives matter. This was never really what was meant by the Black Lives Matter. Having said that, it doesn't mean that I don't think that as the movement went on, there wasn't some kind of perversion of that narrative, which I definitely think there's been a perversion of the original narrative. But anyway, never mind about my any personal views. I don't really have any personal views to really share, so I digress on that. I don't want to get too into the political side because I'm trying to be unbiased and open-minded and trying to analyze Kanye West, his views and his characters. I'm just trying to give an overall picture of kind of how his controversial topics came about associated with him. So, just to kind of get to the point, taking into consideration all those controversial things that surround him, do I think he has a point in what he's saying? So I would say that yes, there are a lot of Jewish people who have power in the media, but they're all individual people who have got themselves to power. And I don't think there's this big conglomerate of Jewish people that kind of, are conspiring together to suppress certain groups of people. So I don't think that's the case. Could be totally wrong. Have no idea. That's beside the point. I think the point to come out and say, to speak about it in the way that Kanye West spoke about it, especially where he was quite insensitive about the Holocaust, saying that he's going to invoke some version of the Holocaust on Jewish people for what they've done to him or something. I just think this is ridiculous. It definitely comes from someone who hasn't really thought about what they were going to say, and this is typical of him. It comes from his emotion. It doesn't come from his logical mindset of thinking about what he's going to say before he says it and the impact of what he's saying. So I think maybe he can be excused for this because this is his character, and then maybe not. Obviously, we know the Holocaust and slavery were complete historical catastrophes. We know this, and there is no kind of excuse for using this in any way, any shape or form to support any kind of argument or any kind of disagreement with a certain group of people. You cannot use this. You cannot say white people are evil because slavery happened. That's ridiculous. And you can't say Jewish people are evil and the Holocaust is connected to this, or you can't say that the Holocaust happened because look at the character that Jewish people had, look at what they've done to me. This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So I think personally there's no excuse for things he says. Another reason why I think there's no excuse is he's the number one person who says he doesn't like the victim mindset. He said he believes in people taking responsibility for their own lives and their own community. He says that no one has power over somebody else, but he's now, trying to insinuate that these powers that be have control and they're kind of ruining people's lives. And I don't know what he's suggesting should be stopped. Jewish people should be stopped. Is he saying that we need to get rid of the Jewish people that are in power? So I just think it's nonsense. I think you need to deal with your own particular situation you have with the person who is that you're having your issue with. You can't kind of expand this to include everybody else. This is like a stereotype, and like I said, he's the number one person who doesn't believe in these stereotypes. He says as a black man he shouldn't be stereotyped with some notions of other black people. And so why does he believe it's okay to do this to Jewish people? So obviously kind of ill thought out. I do think he has some points here and there, that there are sections of society that are very powerful and very influential, and a lot of those people tend to be Jewish people. But then you could look at other societies that are dominated by other people. You could even say, sports, music and sports has been dominated by black culture. I mean, black culture has been extremely influential in modern music and modern fashion and sporting achievements. Definitely, and I mean, what would you say about that? So in using the same logic that Kanye West is using, what about a young white person trying to make it as a rapper? Yeah? Wouldn't that be difficult in a society which is dominated by black people? Hip hop. There are some challenges there for a white person trying to do that. So it's the same kind of thing, Different sectors of society is dominated mostly by different people. You could say that if you was, a young Muslim woman, could a young Muslim woman who's under 6 foot make it in the NBA? You could say. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult, isn't it? because obviously it's mostly dominated by black males that are over 6 foot. So it would be hard to get into the NBA if you're not, um, if you don't match up to those standards. So I just, personally, and then obviously there's the issue of his well documented mental illnesses. They say he's bipolar. He's got all sorts of issues, mental issues going on. He's been in and out of mental hospitals for a while for depression and all sorts of things. He's been on medication, so I think that his views kind of it's kind of a mixture of everything. He says he's got some ideas that have some truth in it, but he's used those elements of truth to kind of construct this stereotypical narrative of a certain group of people, and it just doesn't work because that's what's been done to many people or many groups of people. They've been stereotyped, and I just think it's short-sighted. It's very short-sighted to come out and make this huge blanket accusation towards a group of people when you're part of a group of people who has been stereotypes as well. It's like two wrongs don't make a right. There's no point arguing against something and then being a total hypocrite and then doing the same thing. This is what I kind of see. You talk about not being a victim, but now you're suddenly a victim of this of the Jewish media. You talk about that we should all take individual responsibility and accountability, and that we shouldn't blame anybody for our oppression. But then this is kind of what he's doing. He's blaming the Jewish. He's constructing this idea that there's a Jewish media, and he's blaming them for his oppression, which is what he says we shouldn't do. So obviously there's quite a lot of hypocrisy in that and what he's saying, and can't really ignore that. Basically, it's just you can't say one thing, do another when it suits you, and that's kind of indicative of an emotional person, because they often say what they believe is what feels right to them at the time, and I kind of see him as being a person that's a little bit like this. Having said that, like I said, there are little pockets of truth that he said, and there's quite some insightful things that he has said. I think he is partly right about people taking personal responsibility instead of blaming, society as a whole. But at the same time, I also think it's not a good idea to dismiss the impact of a huge injustice that is done, like slavery or the Holocaust. Obviously, this is going to have an impact on behaviours and the mindset. There's no point saying slavery happened a long time ago. It's got nothing to do with now. Black people should just get over it. There is kind of more to it. So I'm kind of in the middle of those things, and he has kind of highlighted some very insightful things that are worth talking about. So he's right with some things, and he's very wrong on other things. That's what I would say personally. I think he's quite hypocritical at certain times, and at the same time, he's raised some good points. Should he be vilified for what he said, what his recent things that he said? Well, I think there's kind of no choice, because what he has said has upset so many people that this was what was bound to happen. You can't make comments about the Holocaust and then want your comments to be excused. You just can't speak bad about historical atrocities. That's what it really comes down to. Slavery and the Holocaust are two of the worst atrocities in world history. You can't speak about them and make reference to them in the way that Kanye West has done and not expect a huge backlash. And he keeps trying to talk about what he actually meant by saying this and what he meant. You can't get out of it. You can't make blanket statements about historical atrocities and try to explain about what you meant. It just doesn't work. So the quicker he acknowledges that doesn't work and comes out and apologizes, he may be able to get out of this situation. But I doubt it very much. That's all I got really. Obviously, he's lost a lot of endorsements. I think he just has to carry his own cross here, because somebody who's got billions of pounds should have been advised of the things that he should say before he said it. I think even if he had all the best advisors in the world, it wouldn't work with someone like Kanye West, because he's going to say whatever he needs to say. You have to realize he talks about responsibility and accountability. You have to be responsible for what you say, and you have to take the backlash. That's also part of responsibility. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on Kanye West. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you think it's fair, unfair, what's happening to him? I still feel bad for what's happening to him. Great musician, great artist, but just a little bit doesn't have enough insight. These kind of views that he's sprouting is more likely to be responsible for his demise than any kind of group of powerful people. That's my personal view. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm on to the next one. What's up, guys? Just want to take some time real quick to appreciate everyone who clicked on my video. I really do appreciate everyone who watched my content. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Thank you.
Back. I said, guess who's back?